beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191.
After the huge success of Denis Villeneuve's Dune Parts 1 and 2, I decided to revisit David Lynch's 1984 adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel, also titled Dune. And you can find my reviews of Villeneuve's adaptations in the pinned comment. I originally watched Lynch's Dune in the 80s, having not read the book at the time. My teenage self's thoughts on it are a bit fuzzy. Critics then deemed it an impossible adaptation, and it flopped at the box office. Lynch has distanced himself from the project, admitting he probably shouldn't have done this picture. However, upon rewatching a few more times in my adult years, I've grown to appreciate the film, particularly its gorgeous visuals and costume design. The film has gone on to become a cult classic. In this review, I focus on the theatrical release, occasionally referring to scenes from the Alan Smithy cut, which I've only seen partially on YouTube. There might be some spoilers if you haven't seen the '84 movie, Villeneuve's adaptation, or read the book. And I've broken up this video into chapters in case you would like to jump ahead at any time. So grab a Harkonnan juice box as we do a deeper dive into the costume design. David Lynch said in an interview with Starburst magazine featurette before the film's release, he said, in Dune, there are mostly 4 planets that are important to the story. To get them so that they were different and real at the same time took a real long time. All the things that you saw within each of these worlds had to fit logically in that world and feel right. The featurette explains that in order to avoid confusion among the audience and accentuate the individuality of each setting, a distinct color scheme was created. Lynch said Bob Ringwood, who designed the costumes, had to design them within the set rules of each world. The props and everything else also had to obey the same rules. Now, many of the costumes appear to be inspired by cultural and historical examples. British costume designer Bob Ringwood, known for his work on films like Excalibur, embarked on Dune as only his second feature film project. Ringwood was nominated for an Academy Award for Empire of the Sun and Troy, and he won a Saturn Award for his work on Excalibur and Dune. Of the massive undertaking of Dune, Ringwood said that the design team had about 4 months to produce just under 8,000 or 9,000 costumes, and there were times when the workload was very heavy. On several occasions, the team were working through the night to get costumes ready for the next morning's shooting. Even the clothes for principal characters were often done very last minute and had to be improvised out of anything that was around the set. Ringwood explains that he would still be stitching on beads and bits of braid right up to the last moment as the costumes were being taken out of the door, and added that some costumes were made which shouldn't even have made it onto the screen. He described it as both a nightmare and great fun, saying, "You put all this work into it and a fraction shows, but I think overall you can tell the richness, that there was a lot of work there, so I feel very proud that I worked on it." House Atreides is one of the great houses of the feudal interstellar empire known as the Imperium, with Caladan as their ancestral home. The atmosphere of Caladan is characterized by magnificent underwater forests and palatial structures with walls crafted from finely polished wood. In the movie, various members of House Atreides are depicted wearing 2 primary uniforms. Duke Leto, Paul, Gurney, and Duncan all don a formal dress uniform while on Caladan. These dress uniforms are distinguished by their green jackets, a color drawn from the house banner described in the book. As mentioned in the text, he pointed out the window to the Atreides black and green banner hanging limply from a staff at the edge of the landing field. The Atreides attire prominently showcases the Red Hawk crest, a symbol referenced multiple times in the book. In the opening scenes, Jessica is selecting an ensemble for Paul. She turned presenting a semi-formal jacket adorned with the distinctive red Atreides hawk crest above the breast pocket. Jessica then brushed dust from a pair of trousers, carefully arranging them alongside the jacket on the dressing stand behind his bed. Throughout various mythologies, the hawk holds significance as a solar bird, often linked with sun deities. In Greek mythology, for instance, the goddess Circe had associations with hawks, while the hawk served as the messenger of Apollo, the Olympian god representing the sun and light. The House Atreides emblem, featuring the red hawk, is displayed in an expanded form, with the wings outspread and the wingtips pointing upwards, symbolizing the connection with solar symbolism and power. Now, the Mandarin collar of the uniform features a golden hawk rising on each side, while an abstracted red hawk adorns the breast. Duke Leto's jacket displays an oversized embroidered red hawk. Here's an example of a uniform patch, as we see on his jacket. These insignias, also seen on the epaulettes of Duke Leto, Paul, Gurney, and Duncan, of gold embroidery on black with red accents, reflect each character's individuality. Both Leto and Paul wear red aiguillettes, the decorative cords hung from their right shoulders, though there's a press picture of Frank Herbert with Kyle MacLachlan wearing gold ones. Kyle MacLachlan's Paul Atreides costume was auctioned by Screen Used. The jacket, made of a very dark green velvet, has all its design work stitched or embroidered onto it. The black cloth jodhpur-style pants feature cloth ties at the bottom and suspenders, while the adjustable belt has a metal hook buckle. Science Fiction Archives previously had Gurney Halleck's original jacket from Dune, but their website is no longer active. While the great cloaks, worn by both Duke Leto and his son Paul when they are leaving Caladan, have the shape of an Inverness cape, which is a weatherproof two-tiered cape, the wide fur trim brought to my mind the fur trim coats of the Renaissance, as depicted in this painting from circa 1540. Two stand-up dressers in House Atreides are Thufir Hawat and Dr. Wellington Huey. Thufir's attire, reminiscent of Peter de Vries from House Harkonnan, consists of a silvery gray tunic with a stand-up collar paired with a gray overcoat. He frequently adds a greatcoat with a wide fur collar. Notably, David Lynch's Dune features distinctive oversized eyebrows for both mentats. Additionally, Thufir and Dr. Huey exhibit red-stained lips from sappho juice, an elixir that enhances their mental abilities. Dr. Huey's forehead diamond tattoo signifies his background as a graduate of the Sook Medical School. His long black coat carries a militaristic flair, distinctive from the House Atreides jackets with their gold accents and buttons. Dr. Huey's jacket stands out with striped silver epaulettes, stand-up collar, and asymmetrical silver buttons. Though lacking the red hawk insignia, a flash of the house banner in green and black and outlined in red adorns his left arm. Upon first glance at his coat, the chest panel adorned with ammunition and accessory loops immediately brought to mind the choka, which is a Georgian woolen coat known for their gazer breast pockets. Dean Stockwell's Dr. Huey coat fetched $9,600 when auctioned by Heritage Auctions. Notably, the jacket bears a 2-inch stab wound in the lower back with remnants of theatrical blood around the wound and scattered down the back flaps, reflecting the pivotal moment when Huey was betrayed and stabbed by Peter de Vries. Another notable auction item from Heritage Auctions is this stunning hunter green double-breasted floor-length topcoat, which sold for $3,200. The second outfit worn by House Atreides, which takes on a more practical tone, is this tan or khaki battle dress uniform suited to the harsh climate of Arrakis. Paul, Leto, and Gurney sport jumpsuits adorned with the house insignia embellished on their collar, epaulettes, and cuffs. This insignia, featuring red and black embroidery on tan fabric, mirrors the design seen on their Caladan dress uniforms. Officers and troopers follow suit with variations on this attire. Completing the ensemble are tall, black leather boots. Two of Paul's desert costumes have found homes with collectors. The first was auctioned on eBay in 2024, snagging over $2,000 from a private buyer. It came complete with a belt and gun holster made from thick, top-notch leather, while the gun and personal shield generators seem to be crafted from heavy resin. Another costume is held by a different collector. Now, while I appreciated these outfits, someone on the design team had an idea to add ventilation by allowing the flaps to roll up and snap into place, as seen in a press image featuring Kyle MacLachlan. Thankfully, this idea was scrapped and never presented in the movie. Several other Arrakis officer uniforms have also made their way to auction, including 2 costumes auctioned by Prop Store. In 2017, an Arrakis officer's jumpsuit crafted from tan fabric, accompanied by a peak cap, found a buyer. Similarly, in 2015, another Arrakis officer jumpsuit and peak cap, this time made from dark sand-colored cotton, were sold off. Adding to the variety, there's a unique take on the desert outfit with the Atreides trooper uniform. This ensemble consists of a tan canvas jumpsuit featuring multiple pockets, quilted knee and elbow pads, and lace cording up the ankles and wrists, all topped off with a matching cap. This item made its way to auction in 2023. Hey, thank you for hanging out with me so far. If you are new to the channel and enjoying this content, please consider subscribing. House Corrino are one of the great houses of the Empire, with its official residence of the planet Khitan. The Emperor's throne room appears to be crafted from gold and jade, adorned with mosaics blending Roman, Aztec, Moorish, and Venetian influences, and additional inspirations from the Alhambra Palace in Spain. In the royal court, the Emperor and his elite guard don military-style uniforms with a touch of Romanov influence. When meeting the Spacing Guild, Shaddam's black dress uniform stands out with its lavish gold decorations. Red accents on the collar, cuffs, epaulettes, and belt add a regal flair. Draped across his chest is a sash of black watered silk, complemented by a star neck decoration and a striking gold decorative patch. The dangling pinecone adornments, called aiglettes, echo the historical examples like the crystal gold and enamel aiglettes from the late 16th or early 17th century. Meanwhile, Shaddam's cape is adorned with intricate trimmings reminiscent of Renaissance attire. In an unexpected scene at the start of the film, he casually drops his cape onto the throne room floor. As the movie reaches its climax, he maintains the same uniform, but replaces his ornate cape with a sleek, colorless black cloak, its interior lined with satin. The Emperor's elite guard dress in dark navy jackets, with a built-in gold-striped sash and 3 gold embroidered stars just below the throat. According to Business Liquidators, this Saudekaur elite guard wool jacket is one of only 5 jackets made for the movie. It sold for $285 on eBay in September 2003. The Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan, showcases 2 distinct looks. The first is a stunning cream and gold brocade gown featuring an off-the-shoulder style accentuated by a structured peplum and cape sleeves, and showcases a full skirt. Her handmaidens sport similar silhouettes in black and gold. All the ladies in the throne room flaunt tiaras with sparkly veils. While it's a modern take, the style nods to Renaissance fashion, echoing ceremonial dresses from the early 1600s, like those worn by Magdalena Sibylla of Prussia. Irulan's second gown is a reprisal of her initial attire from the movie's opening scene. Once again drawing from Renaissance influences, this golden black gown seems to be crafted from a black and metallic gold woven Indian sari, with the bodice and front panel constructed from the palu, the ornate loose end of the sari, while the rest of the gown utilizes the sari's field. Adding to its elegance, the Elizabethan-style collar is adorned with delicate lace trim. Perhaps Irulan's Swiss braid updo finds inspiration from real-life royalty such as Princess Grace of Monaco, as depicted in a portrait from 1977. The Saudekaur, renowned for their unwavering loyalty, discipline, and combat skills, serve the Padishah Emperor directly as elite shock troops. In the movie, they don black vinyl hazmat-style suits, complete with illuminated green visors. While not among my personal favorites in the film, Ringwood sheds light on the production's challenges, highlighting the need for quick thinking and resourcefulness to stay on schedule. He explained, "Everyone thinks that movies are prepared for months. It's all carefully thought about. Often it's just off the top of your head at the last minute and whatever time you can get it done. For instance, the Saudekaur wore a specific type of mask with this breathing apparatus. The actual breathing apparatus was, car hoses, anything we could find. Interestingly, according to Prop Store, the Saudekaur guard helmets were constructed from welding masks, with the hood crafted from PVC material featuring 3 ventilation holes, one near the mouth and one at each temple, each covered by a rubber grate. These items were auctioned off in 2022. House Harkonnan or Harkonnan is one of the noble families known for its cunning, ruthlessness, and thirst for power. Led by Baron Vladimir Harkonnan, they rule over the industrial planet of Gedi Prime. The Baron's dark, oily world embraces Victorian architecture fashioned from wrought metal. The Baron is easily one of the most grotesque characters in cinema, grossly overweight with one of the worst cases of cystic acne I've ever seen, and with a head topped with curly ginger-colored hair. The Baron's skin-tone bodysuit, while referred to as suspensors in the book, which allow him to float in midair from place to place, gives the appearance of sections of flesh laced and fastened together with webbing. Bob Ringwood explained his approach to the costume in a behind-the-scenes video, saying that the Baron's outfit was based on protective industrial wear because it was assumed that the environment they inhabited was heavily polluted. Therefore, it was essential that Ken McMillan, the actor portraying the Baron, appeared imposing and heavy-set. Despite his actual weight being under 200 pounds, efforts were made to visually enhance his size to appear closer to 500 pounds. To achieve this effect, a cumbersome costume was created. Ringwood said that when Ken McMillan wore the entire costume, he found it too heavy to stand up under its weight. Consequently, a harness was constructed underneath the costume, connected to a metal A-frame, allowing him to be wheeled around the studio for shots. Additionally, he was suspended on a flying wire during filming, ensuring he never had to stand upright in the suit, resulting in a humorous situation on set. The Baron's slick navy and red coat, meanwhile, appears to take inspiration from late 18th century military jackets. In a campy, almost cartoonish portrayal, the Baron's nephews, the Beast Rabin and Feyd-Rautha, don metallic blue armor complete with codpieces. Their spacey glam rock costumes likely served as inspiration for future generations of sci-fi attire. Sting's spiky ginger hair only adds to the overall aesthetic. Much attention was drawn to Sting's skimpy bottoms, but Ringwood clarified that their design was born out of necessity. The scene featuring Sting wearing a winged jockstrap was initially planned to be shot with him nude, to which Sting had agreed. However, the studio's last-minute panic led to a change of plans. Lynch was contacted at midnight the night before shooting, and he instructed Ringwood to find an alternative. Thus, a small winged G-string was hastily crafted, ensuring that Sting wouldn't appear completely nude the next morning. With haircuts that looked like they took clippers to their scalp, but then halfway through abandoned the idea, the Harkonnen soldiers dress in quilted vinyl flight suits. Their breathing apparatus reminds me of an early Ralph McQuarrie concept of Deke Skywalker battling Darth Vader wearing a similar breathing device. Here's an example of an early concept of a Harkonnen gas mask helmet. A Harkonnen still suit was sold in 2016 by Prop Store. The costume is described as a heavily padded suit in a dark rustic brown color, featuring 2 front large breast pockets done up right to the top with a zip and popper buttons. The shoulders have the black rubber oxygen tubes attached, as seen in the film, and I'll add that the costume has been distressed with a rusty red paint, which I assume is supposed to be the spice melange. If you would like to support me so that I can continue producing this type of content, I've created a Patreon beginning at $3 per month. I'll leave a link in my description if you want to check it out. The Bene Gesserit, sometimes referred to as space nuns, are a sisterhood comprised of a secretive and powerful organization known for their skills in manipulation, political intrigue, and the development of various mental and physical disciplines. The Reverend Mother, Gaius Helen Mohayim, is a high-ranking member. Ringwood hasn't discussed the Bene Gesserit in interviews, so these reflections are my own. Based on my observations like House Corrino, their aesthetic seems reminiscent of the Renaissance era. Their bald heads, plucked eyebrows, and veiled headdresses evoke a striking resemblance to the depictions seen in 15th century paintings. In those artworks, women often sported high hairlines and donned hats and headdresses positioned toward the rear of the head, echoing the style embraced by the Bene Gesserit. According to the fashion history timeline, 15th century women often plucked or shaved their hairline back several inches towards the illusion of a lengthy forehead, a sign of intelligence, and severely tweezed eyebrows completed the effect. The one particular style of headpiece worn by the nuns looked like a man's felt cap or a woman's Dutch coif. The makeup, however, is 80s all the way. Here are examples of the gowns worn by the novices of the Bene Gesserit order. According to Profiles in History, these finely pleated gowns are crafted from black rayon, with sleeves secured by an intricately woven, adjustable satin-like string. Behind-the-scenes images reveal that the trademark yellow striped accents were carefully hand-painted onto the flat fabric before the pleating process. Upon seeing the sisterhood dresses, it immediately recalled the remarkable gowns crafted by Spanish fashion designer, artist, and inventor Mariano Fortuny. Renowned for his invention of the Delphos gown, an exquisite sleeveless dress inspired by ancient Greek fashion, Fortuny created one of his most iconic designs. This example, dating back to the 1920s, showcases a simple yet elegant column of finely pleated silk, emblematic of Fortuny's timeless aesthetic. The hooded cloaks worn by the sisterhood to protect against the rain on Caladan appear to be inspired by the Azorian hood, a traditional hooded cape or cloak worn in the Azores, a group of Portuguese islands in the Atlantic Ocean. These hoods are often made from wool and are designed to protect against the wind and cold weather. Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohaim's cloak, while less fussy, looks similar to the shape of Jessica's. Lady Jessica is the concubine of Duke Leto Atreides, mother of Paul Atreides, and a member of the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. Jessica wears her Fremen stillsuit alongside 3 ultra-feminine looks in the film. These softer styles stand in contrast to House Atreides' military uniforms. Ringwood's designs cleverly blend historical silhouettes with modern pleating and draping techniques, using luxurious fabrics that subtly suggest their otherworldly origins. One of my favorites didn't make it to the theatrical release, but remains a standout for me. Jessica's knife-pleated tea gown exudes an aura of old Hollywood glamour, reminiscent of the stunning pleated Grecian-inspired gown worn by Katharine Hepburn in the 1940 stage production of the Philadelphia Story. Another striking look of Jessica's includes a finely pleated black gown with a long train paired with an ultra-tailored Spencer jacket featuring a stand-up peaked collar. This ensemble subtly nods to a witchy aesthetic, referencing the derogatory term witches often used against the Bene Gesserit. Though it initially resembles Victorian attire, the gown draws more inspiration from the finely pleated Fortuny gowns. One addition I absolutely adore is the oversized hooded cloak Jessica wears, whether it's welcoming the Bene Gesserit in the rain on Caladan or preparing to travel to Arrakis with the royal family. The hood and cloak are trimmed in wide fur, echoing the style of Paul and Leto's cloaks. As for the hood design itself, it possibly draws inspiration from a few sources. Upon first seeing it, I couldn't help but think of the calash bonnet, a millinery piece famously embraced by Marie Antoinette. These bonnets were crafted to shield the extravagant 18th century hairstyles from inclement weather. Resembling the hood of a carriage, they were reinforced with whalebone or cane hoops, allowing for easy collapsing or raising as demonstrated by Jessica. Odes and illustrations from the late 1700s often humorously exaggerated the size of these bonnets. And I couldn't help but notice the resemblance between Jessica's cloak and undergown and this illustration of a Renaissance woman clad in a huque from the 16th century. The huque is characterized as a robe or cloak and was commonly worn by both men and women across Europe during the Middle Ages. Another remarkable ensemble for Jessica is a white pleated bodice and collar paired with a matching mermaid flared skirt worn when the Atreides arrive at the palace at Harkonnan. This finely pleated gown featuring bead openwork on the sleeves and skirt seems to pay homage to the Greek Ionic chiton as interpreted by Fortuny with this 1920s Delphos dress and 1930s cream silk peplos and capelet. Adding a modern twist, there's a white tabard cinched at the waist with a corselet flaring out below the waist with a petal detail. The entire look brings to mind a softer version of the Gibson girl aesthetic, capturing the ideal feminine charm portrayed in Charles Dana Gibson's illustrations. It's likely that Ringwood took cues from Hollywood designers such as the elegant crystal-beaded jersey gown worn by Rosalind Russell in 1943, designed by Travis Banton. Jessica's 1940s pin-up style updo, complete with forward-rolled bangs or bumper bangs, caught my attention. It's intriguing to note the similarity with actor Sean Young, who sported similar 1940s bumper bangs while playing Rachel in 1982's Blade Runner, only to later portray Paul's love interest, Chani or Cheney, in Dune 2 years later. Building on the earlier mention of the Gibson girl, Jessica's half-up, half-down hairstyle bears a striking resemblance to this 1901 pen and ink illustration by Charles Dana Gibson. Aside from the cutscenes, the way that Jessica's costumes appear in the movie had costume designer Bob Ringwood fuming. He said, Francesca wore a wonderful nightdress that was dripping in squares and dissolved into silk, and you could see her body, but I mean, she was shot covered in a cheap cotton sheet, and I could have killed everybody. A lot of the work that we did, you just didn't see. The Spacing Guild, or the Guild Navigators, control all interstellar travel. Among the costumes in the movie, the Spacing Guild stood out for its peculiar design, a collared tunic resembling an oversized sleeping bag. What made it even more unsettling was the bald heads of the wearers, some with open wounds. The backstory behind these costumes is quite grim. Ringwood explained, the Guild Navigators look very sinister and strange, and the reason they look so strange is that the San Diego Fire Department found all these old body bags from the 20s, 30s, and 40s when tearing down an old fire station. These bags, made of large canvas tarps with crisscross webbing straps, concealed remnants of the past, including fluids and unpleasant remnants. Ringwood admitted, I didn't tell them until they finished that they were actually used body bags. Despite their origins, a screen-used Guild Navigator costume fetched $12,000 at auction by Profiles in History in 2011. Described as a heavy garment with a thickly padded polyester shell and a heavy padded wool interior, it bears the Spacing Guild emblem on the upper left breast. Hand-painted faux spice stains adorn the costume. The Fremen are indigenous to the desert planet Arrakis. The decor of the planet Dune itself mainly features shades of black and sand, while its inhabitants dwell in vast underground caverns sculpted from rock using laser technology. The Fremen are known for their distinctive attire, primarily consisting of body-hugging still suits. In the books, it's mentioned that Fremen and private entrepreneurs manufacture these suits, but those crafted by the Fremen from worm skins are highly valued for their superior quality. These suits play a crucial role in desert survival, allowing the wearer to reclaim water for sustenance. In the book and movie, planetologist Liet Kynes explains to Lady Atreides that a well-functioning Fremen suit only loses a thimbleful of moisture a day. As depicted in the movie, the still suits are black. While it might seem counterintuitive to wear black in the desert, it draws parallels to the traditional attire of the Bedouin tribes, who also wear black robes in the desert. Research from a 1980 study in Nature suggests that the heat absorbed by black robes is lost before reaching the skin, making their color choice practical rather than purely aesthetic. As revealed in the movie, the suits don't stay black for long, as the spice and sand create a brown-gray film on the suits. According to IMDb, Ringwood's inspiration for the design of the still suits was the medical textbook Gray's Anatomy, while Mark Siegel, Dune's head of stillsuit construction, said that Ringwood based his design on a statue he'd seen and wanted the suit to be like a second skin. Personally, I think the stillsuits have an insectoid quality to them. Ringwood said in the behind-the-scenes featurette that the stillsuit is the essential central thing of the movie, and it should have a sort of futuristic aboriginal quality, so they were almost tribal. He added that every single suit was handmade. Compared to the modern technologies of today, where the actors can be digitally scanned, the '84 production had to do individual body casts of each of the actors and background, creating male, female, and child versions. Likely keeping in mind the two hot young actors Kyle MacLachlan and Sean Young, Ringwood said, "I was determined that the stillsuit was going to be very sexy." This involved creating a female version of the stillsuit, ensuring that the female characters had anatomically correct features. Meanwhile, with the addition of a six-pack, all the men had the body they'd never had, so they loved it. Siegel explained that they outlined patterns on unitards using chalk and put corresponding foam rubber sections. These sections were gradually assembled to construct the understructure, complete with tubing. Following this, they applied a thick latex coat with brushes and a thin layer via spraying for a final seal. Finally, the unitard underwent drying in an oven to facilitate the latex curing. While the costumes were very comfortable to wear under normal conditions, with the movie shot in Mexico in 100-degree temps, it made for one hell of a hot costume. Dune likely didn't have access to cooling devices first developed by NASA in the 1970s. Most current productions, like DC and Marvel Pictures, provide the actors with cooling shirts to be worn under their suits, otherwise it would be unbearable. Sir Patrick Stewart, who played Gurney, said that the stillsuit was the most uncomfortable costume he has ever worn, while Max von Sydow, who played Kynes, told Ringwood during shooting that the costume was absolute hell, but it looked so good he would put up with it. Here's an example of a complete stillsuit that sold in July of 2024. Additionally, the stillsuit jacket worn by Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides was auctioned in October 2009. Both items are from Profiles in History. Paul's crysknife is crafted from the teeth of dead sandworms. While not a prop knife wielded by our hero, here's an example of a special effects off-white resin crysknife from the auction house prop store that sold in November 2011 for over £5,000. One thing that surprised me is that Ringwood's team crafted 2,000 costumes complete with hats, only to discover that David Lynch opted against the Fremen wearing headdresses, time and budget that could have been spent elsewhere. After grappling with tough decisions regarding footwear, they ultimately opted to purchase custom-made wetsuit boots. These boots were modified to align more closely with the costume by repositioning the straps and buckles. Here's an example of Lady Jessica's stillsuit boots courtesy of Tate's Costumes. Paul's unique ceremonial robe, worn in the final scene of the movie, was crafted by local artisans in Mexico. At one point, it was even up for auction by Screen Used, although their site is currently down. Weighing approximately 17 pounds, the robe is thick and heavy and mottled with blotch marks where it appears bleach was applied. Embroidered upon the wide trim are ruined letters. The auction house describes this detail as names written backwards, including those of some of the cast members. Jessica is draped in the same robe during the drinking of the Water of Life ceremony. Let me know in the comments your favorite Dune costumes. If you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.